And welcome back, everyone, to my Dragon Ball Z voice for Box Office Report. Today, on the 28th of April, the last 2024, the last weekend of April in 2024. We're really moving into May. The summer movie system is The summer movie summer movie season was the right word I was looking for. Is kicking up in full starting this week with Fall Guy and then kind of never stopping until we get into August. And even then, it'll pick back up a little bit in September. But I digress. So I did not get the box office right. Because I did not think Unsung Heroes, a movie I did not see any trailers for, any marketing whatsoever, was going to be in the top 5. Challengers, as I did predict correctly, debuted at a little over 15 million. Unsung Heroes debuts at 7.7 million. Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire made another 7.2 million, dropping only 24.8%. Civil War dropped another 37.6% for another 7 million. And Abigail rounds out the top 5 with another 5 million, dropping just under 50%. Challengers debuting at 15 million. Let's talk about that. So I went through all of this, looked at the numbers, where they're all at, and I looked at what the budgets are. 55 million is the budget for this film. Now, I had intended to see this film this week, but my girlfriend really wasn't looking forward to it all that much, and so I just went and saw Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare for a second time. And we saw that, and she really liked that, and it was clearly the better option for us to do. And we all had a good time. This wasn't like a movie that was big on my radar either. Let me rephrase that sentence. It was on my radar. I knew it was coming. I had seen the trailers, but it just wasn't one that I'm like, I need to see this. Oh, the steamy sexiness of it all. Like, no, didn't really care about that. But still, I was interested, but I'll probably not end up seeing it. Still, 15 million against a $55 million budget. That's not a great start. That could be, however, a lot worse. Because honestly, this was one of those movies that, even though it was getting a lot of trailers, we kept seeing the trailers quite a bit for a while, I wouldn't have been surprised if it opened to less than 10. It's just not the type of movie I think garners a very big crowd. Now these are based off some real life story, I think, but I could be wrong on that. Sports movies in general don't garner the big box office draw. And Zendaya, whose star is rising, let's not mince words. Zendaya's star is rising, or is it Zendaya? I never know. I'm sure there's been a video about it before where she's had told people how her name's pronounced. I'm going to say Zendaya, but yeah, her star is rising, but I don't think she herself alone can carry or sell a film. I think that's the best way to put it. Give her another 5 years and then we'll see what happens. Or put her in a role that's not this and we'll see what happens. Because I do think a giant chunk of that 25 million worldwide, as you can see, does come from the fact that people do like Zendaya. And that it's not like this movie doesn't attract anyone. Obviously, it still made 15 million, but against a $55 million budget, that's not enough. And I think it really just comes down to, I think either people were tired of seeing the trailer or they just weren't interested enough in the trailer. And so, yeah. Now, will this movie bomb? That depends. My guess is you're looking at anywhere between 30 to 40 million in marketing. I don't think it's a full 55. Definitely not. You're looking at probably more closer to like 30, 35, 40. If I were to round it into a nice number, I'd say 35 because of the extra 5 to round it up to 90 million. Which would mean that this film has to hit somewhere in the neighborhood of 135 to break even. Unless, for some reason, it gets a huge second win. It actually either makes the same amount next week or doesn't drop at all or goes up somehow. This film is not going to be making 135 million. There's really no feasible way for it to make its money back. But hey, look, the movie is getting a good reception. I checked; it has like an 88% from the critics, and the audience is somewhere around there as well, give or take. So it's got a good reception at least. So you can at least. I have a feeling this is something that people will be watching more on streaming than in the theaters. Because unfortunately, when it comes to movies, before we talk more about what came out, people seem to be under this impression that movies are dying. People don't want to go to the movies anymore. No. People want to be entertained when they go to the movies. This is 100% true. They want an experience. But certain experiences draw in more people and therefore make more money, and that's why we can warrant putting more money into them. AKA your Godzilla Kongs, your Dune 2s, your Kung Fu Pandas. These are the kinds of movies or experiences that people want to be, or at least people like going back to see multiple times in the theater. Now, that's not to say people don't like to go see movies like Challengers or Ministry or Ghostbusters. Honestly, Ghostbusters should have also been a relatively high hit, but it didn't really. I mean, it did okay, but not enough to make its money. It still made like $180-some-odd million. But yeah, or like The Beekeeper. In fact, let's just look at, let's get another tab open right here and just look at the box office right now for the year. So the worldwide box office right now, let's get these numbers up. Dune Part 2 just crossed the $700 million mark. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Godzilla, $519 million mark. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so you look at your big three. You look at the top three of the year so far. You got Kung Fu Panda 4, family flick, cartoon, engaging, bring the kids, bring multiple times. There has been nothing out forever that can really compete with this in that demographic, so they've had that big advantage. You got Godzilla vs. Kong, giant kaiju monster, blowy uppy shit. People have been digging on Godzilla. He's been having a big resurgence as well. And then you got Dune Part 2, which was part 2 of a award-nominated film. You got just completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Done dirty in the 2021 pandemic era films. Like 2020 was the start of the pandemic, and there were no pandemic era films. Then you got the post-pandemic era films, where the studio was starting to come back. Our studios were starting to come back, and that was the era of Dune 1. So it unfortunately got really got screwed over by that. And then he did the dumbass day and date release. There's a reason those people no longer work at Warner Brothers, among other reasons. So yeah, each of those are giving something either epic or silly and fun, or just they're giving something more to entertain than an R rating. Again, the R rating doesn't help it either, because that means you're restricting your audience. Not that kids want to go see this film, but maybe some teenagers at 13 years old would like to go see Zendaya because they're a fan of hers. I don't know. All I know is we'll see what happens. Unsung Heroes made $7.7 million. That's all it has made currently. But it's only made on $6 million, which means it did what you would love the dream a movie would do, is make its production budget back on the first weekend and then some. Granted, it's only 7.7.5 million more, or sorry, 1.7.5 million more. So take that with a little grain of salt. But still, that's not bad, especially because I don't remember seeing a trailer for this film at all, which means its marketing must be minuscule. Minimal and minuscule. It must be a small marketing budget. Probably no, I'm guessing 10, 15 at most. Let's just say 10 for right now. That probably makes sense. That sounds about right. Yeah, so that would mean that this film only has to hit literally 24 million to break even. The downside to that is when you open this small, the chances of you making that much back is very minimal. So just because A, hardly anyone knows you're out. B, hardly anyone know when to go see you. And then C, your return on investment, even if a movie is like the best movie of the year, might not be that great. There's been very few exceptions of a film opening and then making either the same or more back on the next weekend. The few rare examples I know off the top of my head of this would be The Greatest Showman and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Those are the most recent examples of that. It's happened before too, but it's still rare in the grand scheme of Hollywood. Man, I'm slurring my speech today. Grand scheme of Hollywood. In the grand scheme of Hollywood's history, it's a very rare thing that's happened. So, yeah, I have no idea if he'll do it. We'll see. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire. Now, you briefly saw it over there, but it made 7.2 this weekend, $519 million. So, hey, it's crossed the $500 million marker. Yes. It was already profitable. It was profitable week 2. So, right now, it's just been adding and adding and adding. But again, the reason it's been just continuing to go unimpeded is no competition. It's really the big action film out right now. Big spectacle adventure thing. So that's really been helping it. But now the next, man, my pronunciation, like I know the word I'm going for. I was trying to say next, but I went to next. Like for some reason, my speech is really hindered at the moment. And I'm not exactly sure why. Give me one moment. I mean, I had speech issues as a kid. Like pronunciation was very difficult for me as a kid. And I've always had it. Like it's never gone away. But I've been able to keep it in a lot of check for a lot of my life. I think when doing the channel, I tend to get so wrapped up in something, and therefore I overhype myself a little bit, or I should say get a little overexcited, that my brain and mouth are not connecting at the same rate. So like right there, it said in instead of at. I chose the wrong word there. So I really gotta focus a little bit with my speech here. But anyway, it's the fun action film is what I was saying. So right off the gate, did it again, right out of the gate. 519 million, crossed the $500 million mark. But, and I had a bug there, got him. I think I got him. But there's another thing. If you go and check what the overall worldwide box office for the original Godzilla is, and then what the original box office for Kong Skull Island. Kong Skull Island is still the highest grossing of the MonsterVerse at $568 million. But Godzilla 2014 is $524 million. I believe I checked that right. 1 second. I believe I got that right. Godzilla. Where are you, Godzilla? Let's see here. Godzilla. Good dude. History shows again and again as we're going through this. 524. In fact, technically you could call that 525. That means this one's only $6 million away from beating the original 2014 Godzilla. This film is still, I think I estimated, at least domestically, that this film had about 10 to 20 million left in its tank. I still stand by that. It might even have a little bit more, which means, yeah, this film's going to beat the original 2014 Godzilla. The question now simply breaks down to, could it catch Kong? As it stands right now, it's $49 million away from catching Kong. That one's a tall order. Like, it probably has another 15 million in the tank domestically overall, but even if I add another 10 from the international, which I'm not even sure it's still got left in there, that's only 25 million. I don't think it's got 49 million left in the tank. Certainly can do another certainly can do another 6 to beat 2014, which by all accounts it should do next week. But I don't see it beating Kong. It tapered out a little too quick for that. Which whatever. It doesn't have to beat Kong, but would have been nice. Would have been a nice little cap in the feather. Still, again, like I just said, it doesn't need to do it. It's going to beat 2014's Godzilla. It's going to do that. But it's arguably, I think, the most profitable of the group. It's made on the lowest budget among them. I think at 135 was the budget. You would factor in about 100 in marketing at least. Film had to hit 360. So at this point, 520, if I do the math real quick in my head here, 20, if I just round that up to, like, say 520 real quick, I think that is, or I think, therefore I am, about 100, take us 170 out of there, you're looking at 135. The film made 100 million plus in money, in profit. So that's great. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some of the other ones were more profitable. But I'm thinking just strictly on profit, not necessarily what they made overall. Because you got to factor in the budget, the production budget, the marketing budget. Then you got to factor in the theater's cut, which is where you take that general third out. And then that, whatever the remainder after that third minus the production and marketing combined is what the movie actually made. But that's still 100 million. That can finance another MonsterVerse film. So, yeah, no, I'm curious to see where this film ultimately lands in terms of its long-term box office. Civil War, another 7 million for Civil War. A film I don't care about. 71 million against, I believe it's a $50 million budget. So this film's not making its money back still, and I'm not surprised by it. Now, granted, in its third week, it did only drop 37.6 million, so that's a better drop. What was last week's drop anyway? I know it still dropped like 50 million last week. Let's see here, domestic weekend box office. Yeah, it dropped 56 the first week prior, and then the first week. And then this week it dropped another 37, which, is a much better drop, quite frankly. And it even lost screens this week instead of gaining them. I mean, it's not going to make its money back, but it's an interesting thing to see that people are still going back to see it. Because from what I heard, it isn't quite what it's selling itself as, which, to be fair, I still call false advertising, but whatever. So it's not, I think, or from what I hear, it's not as distasteful as the concept seems to be leaning itself, but the whole backdrop of the film is still not a good look in this point in history, I think. But whatever. I've said my piece on why I think Civil War probably isn't going to do well and is not doing well. So there's that. Abigail, another 5.2 million in its second week, 28.6 million against, oddly enough, a $28 million budget. So it's at least at its production budget, which is good. Also, it probably has about 20 million in marketing. So you're looking at a film that's made on roughly 68 million, roughly. So if you do the math real quick, 34, 102 is what the film has to make. This film ain't gonna do that in a heart. No way is this film gonna be making that. Universal not having a good year this year. Now, granted, I believe Universal's got If coming out, which is gonna be a nice big cap in their feather there. Cap in their feather in their cap. A cap in your feathers. Just skewer it on the feather. Let's see. Can I get the worldwide back? Yeah, I do. Do I know if any of these are from? Any of these other ones are from Universal? The top two, ironically, are WB. I believe Kung Fu. Now that I think about it, I believe Kung Fu Panda is Universal, right? Yeah, Kung Fu Panda is Universal. So that is a win that Universal's definitely needed this year. Again, I'm almost stuttering, which is odd. I don't know why. Am I still? Because I can feel my voice. My throat does still feel a little kind of not hoarse, but spent from doing the hour some odd talking in the Q&A. So I wonder if my voice just hasn't recovered yet. I don't know. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Oh man, I'm stuttering like crazy, and it's really kind of bothering me. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Again, pronunciation. I had difficulty with it as a kid, and it seems to be coming back. 15.9 million against the 15 million. No, it was a $60 million film. Yeah, so recently this week I did hear that the UK or something like that, Lionsgate or whoever is in charge of like streaming or some bullshit like that, was limiting the international release of this film. Like certain territories were not going to be able to see this film. Like I heard that, I'm like, why do people keep thinking that if you just save it for your streaming service is going to do better? And you're going to make more money. They have proven time and time again that does not work. And you are just leaving money on the floor at that point. Like, seriously, you're just burning 60 million at that point. Oh, okay, in this case, it's like, 50 some odd million right now? But you're still burning that. Well, no, you're burning more because of marketing. You're burning that money. They've proven that. Get the word out about the movie in the theaters, make what money you can from the theaters, and then put it on the streaming. Not only does that make you money in the theaters, or at least soften your blow, or soften the loss of what you spent on the money, or spent on the movie. See, money, movie, that I can see why my brain connected those two. But then it helps hype up your streaming service later on because so many people saw it in the theater first and be like, that was awesome. I can't wait to watch it again. Oh, the streaming service has it. How much is it? All right, we'll get the streaming service. Oh, they also got this. That's how that's supposed to work. But yet so many dumbass studio heads and dumbass streaming service heads don't understand that concept. And it really annoys me because this was a good movie. It was a good movie that deserved a lot better than what it's getting. So I don't know. All right. Kung Fu Panda 4, another film that just crossed $500 million. So good for Kung Fu Panda. Yay. It is also like Godzilla getting pretty close to being capped out. Godzilla's got a little bit more gas in the tank. Kung Fu Panda's getting pretty tapped out. There's not much left for it to make worldwide or domestically or internationally. It can still make a little bit more, but it's pretty done. What the final nail in the coffin will be when either If or Garfield opens, because both of those, particularly Garfield being animated, but even If is a family-friendly project, imagination, imaginary creatures, all this like effects and orcs and stuff. That's something that's definitely gonna be the nail in the coffin of whatever run this thing still has. But again, just like Godzilla, it doesn't really need to make that much more. In fact, it doesn't really need to make more, period. Very similar to what I said with Godzilla and Kong. Kung Fu Panda 4 is arguably the most profitable of the series because it was made on the lowest budget. $85 million, if I'm not mistaken. Then you factor in 50, I don't think it's a full 85 in the marketing, but 50 or 60 million in the marketing budget. If I were to be a betting man, I would maybe lean towards like 70, just to round it up to the 150 mark. And then, again, you take the third out for what this film made in terms of its long run. Let's see here. That would be, what, 26, 2, 3. You're looking at about film making like 137. Sorry, no, 137. 370 some odd, 360 some odd, which would mean then this film went on to make roughly about $200 million in profit. Roughly. Yeah. Hey, if you're wondering if you should greenlight the fifth one, probably. And look at the lessons you've learned. It's like, hey, it's made on less. If we can get away with making the next one on less, let's do it. Or if we can just do the same amount for the next one, let's do that as well. Then again, you have contracts and a lot of actors who keep coming back want more money, which is probably why none of the Fearsome Five had vocal performances in the movie, and why only Ian McShane was the only villain returning who actually spoke. I'm taking it with. You have Dustin Hoffman, you have Bryan Cranston. I can't remember who voices his dad. It's Lo Pan from Big Trouble in Little China. I can't remember his name. But yeah, so you have some of the returning voice cast, but clearly I think what they figured out how to do is with further advancements in technology, they figured out how to do the same with less money. So, I say that because it didn't look really all that different from the other movies. Maybe there were some texture differences, maybe there's some detail differences I was missing, but it really didn't look that different from the other movies. So, or dissimilar, I think is what I was trying to say. Dissimilar, different. It's like, what? So yeah, but good for Kung Fu Panda, absolutely. Unfortunately, a film that did suffer, and I think I can finally put a rest to what I think went wrong here. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire only made 170, might as well say 78, and it will be 78 after the weekend or tomorrow, on a $100 million budget. 50, you're probably looking at about 50 in marketing, which isn't bad. By all accounts, 100 million in budget, 50 in marketing, 150. Looking at a film that has basically hit less than 240 to break even. This should have been able to do that, but you get lackluster reviews. You get, a fun movie. I wouldn't even go so far as to say it's bad, but it's a fun movie. But a movie with problems from a structure perspective. And to be fair, I'm being subjective here. This is my opinion, but I think a lot of people. I'm trying to figure out why people didn't go back to see it. That was fun. It had fun. The original cast that were left came back. The new cast is still there, and it was fine. But at the end of the day, I didn't go back to see it, and I think a lot of people didn't go back to see it. I think people are just kind of done with Ghostbusters right now. That sucks. I like the film. I still would like to see more, but I think people are done. I don't think if they were to say, oh, we're going to do another Ghostbusters film next year, I don't see that one doing any better. That one's probably doing worse, as a matter of fact. Because Afterlife was a very refreshing return. It was a very refreshing return. And it did what I think Ghostbusters 2016 wanted to do, was, give us a new story, but still gave us the proper nods to the originals. Because they, unlike with 2016, they did set it in the world of the original, with the original characters who ultimately came back. And it was very well received critically. It was very well received from the fans. It was also still in a pandemic era, so it didn't make probably the money they thought it would. But it was they were able to do a very nice send-off in tribute to Harold Ramis. So I think that really resonated with a lot of the original fans. It got the bad taste of the 2016 one out of our mouths. I feel bad for all those actresses because they were trying to do the best they could with the script they had. That's all an actor can do. Good actor and a bad actor are all still, puppeteers of the puppet master, aka the director. If the puppeteer doesn't know where to lead the puppets, well, then they're just going to be doing their own thing and trying as best they can. It also doesn't help that the script wasn't very good. But yeah, I ultimately think that a lackluster movie along with lackluster reviews. And again, lackluster doesn't mean bad. I need to be very clear. There are still good things in the movie, good moments. There's fun to be had. But a disappointing movie, not the movie we had hoped for. You got that? And I think an audience that is just kind of now done with Ghostbusters. This is not the same kind of thing like, say, people are done with Marvel. People are done with comic book movies. A $800-some-odd million Guardians of the Galaxy, a vastly well-received Loki Season 2, and a almost $1 billion Doctor Strange, a nearly $2 billion Spider-Man No Way Home. All those would disagree with you that people are done with comic book movies. But the numbers don't lie when it comes to something like the DC films, for example. They were just tired of that particular universe. Or with the Ghostbusters films, which have never blown up the box office. They've never blown it up. I think that's another problem, is that I think they put too much faith in it, too much money, into a film franchise that has never been a multi-$100 million film franchise. So I think that's another problem. They put too much they put too much backing into this idea, I think. If they wouldn't have had to have gone lower by much, but $20 million less, $80 million budget, which I think would have been reasonable. And then then probably you're still looking at maybe anywhere between about 50 million. So you're now looking at a film made on 130. Okay, it's still probably going to lose money at that point, but now it's like, now that gap is like squished by $20 million at least. So anyway, Dune Part 2, good news is that crossed 700 million. Not much to say on that, except that people just kept going back to see the film. Because that's what a good film does. Either a good, entertaining, or good and entertaining film does. Because, going back to Godzilla and Kong, I don't necessarily think that film is good. I don't think it's bad either. It's silly. It's stupid. But it's a load of fun. It's a load of fun. And I would say it's okay in terms of like story and all that. It's got ridiculous things in it, 100%, but it's okay. It's fine. It's not a good movie, but damn it, did I have a lot of fun. Dune is very entertaining. He's not just a good and well-made film. It's going to be an Oscar contender for sure. But it's an engaging film. It's a thought-provoking film. It's an entertaining film. You're invested. You can't take your eyes off the screen with this film a lot of times. So, yeah, I think people just kept going back for that experience. Now, granted, it hasn't been in the top 5 for weeks on end now, but it's still a film that is raking in a little bit each week. Now, granted, with Fall Guy and then If and then just the summer movie season kicking off as of this week, it's not going to be staying around much longer. It's in its 9th week, for God's sake, so it's not going to be sticking around much longer. Otherwise, not much else to talk about. Boy Kills World. I had suggested we see that instead of Ministry, but we still had a good time with Ministry. Monkey Man made her 1.1 million. It currently stands around 31 million. Good for it. Beyond that, nothing else to really talk about. Nothing that continue to stick around long enough to get its money back. I mean, the First Omen. Let's talk about the First Omen real quick. 4 weeks ago came out. It's at 50 million, but it's on like a 30 or 50 million dollar budget. I can't actually remember. But it's only making 700 grand this week on only 1,000 screens. That's bad, man. That's terrible. That is bad. That is just bad. But regardless, yeah, it was a solid week at the box office, all things considered. I mean, if I do the math real quick on this, I look at the top, and we had 3, by the way, re-releases, or sorry, 2 re-releases. Alien, the original Alien, and then The Mummy. I believe that's the Brendan Fraser one. Yeah, the Brendan Fraser Mummy was back in the theaters. That's kind of fun. Both of those actually made an extra million, so good for them. So I mean, if you look at this. If you look at this real quick, what is that? 22.7, then 31.9, then 39, 38, then 39, 43. You're looking at almost 50 million this week, so it's still not bad, but yeah, the amount that movies are making each week is kind of dipping. We need some new blood, we need some new, what's the term I'm looking for? We need to mix up the pool a little bit. We need to diversify the gene pool of movies a little bit here. So, luckily, again, we have Fall Guy coming out, and we got Tarot, the new horror movie coming out. So, what do I think the box office will look like? Well, not surprisingly, I am going to go Fall Guys number 1. That film, I think, I don't know if it's going to be $100 million opening. I don't think so. But I think that film's going to be a $50+ million opening. Definitely, I think it is. At least, I hope it is. Because we've been seeing these trailers. They look fun. They look entertaining. They look like, yeah, shot through the heart. Give me some of that 80s goodness. Excuse me. Yeah, Fall Guy. I'll go Tarot next. New horror film, so it's at least got a shot at number 2. After that, that's a good question. Probably would go Challengers. I mean, even if it goes 60, you're still making like $6-some-odd million. Godzilla's looking like, and Kong is looking like, if it makes 24 this week, probably gonna drop more like 30 next week. That would be about 2.1 million it drops. So maybe around a little over under 5 million. So I will go with Godzilla at number 4. Oh God. Zeta. But oh God. I guess I'd go Civil War. It's taking less drops. It has more money. It has a bigger amount per weekend right now that it can drop from. So yeah, I guess I'll go with that. Unsung Heroes, I imagine, is probably going to drop somewhere in the 50-ish range, my guess. So it won't be in the top 5. So again, just to recap, I'm going to go Fall Guy, Tarot, Challengers, Godzilla, and then Civil War. We'll see where the box office lands next week. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.